Well, hello there. I hope everybody's doing well on this President's Day 2023. This is the inaugural podcast for the story you find yourself in, a channel I just started. And it was the impetus was the release of my book called From Genesis to Revelation, A Story You Find Yourself In. It's by Balboa Press. And we approved the press release. It's going to go out momentarily. And it's a pretty cool feeling to go through something like this and put something out there that very vulnerable, but also I think it can help people. And that's the purpose of this podcast, is to help people. And I think the best way to help people is you tell your story. And I got a lot in there to talk about. And the only way that you can help people is be vulnerable. And so that's what I'm going to do. And the second book I wrote, well, the first book, that's the same, this is the first book, is the story you find yourself in. And that's why I got these glasses on, because, I'm an author. That's what we get to do. No, but really, I wore glasses in this picture because I didn't want anybody to see my eyes. There's a lot of pain in those eyes back in the day. And I did this size books, I didn't know what I was doing. I did self-publishing all the way through, and it was like, when I saw my first printed copy, I went, what the heck? I didn't want to do a coffee table book, but that's what I got. Posting that one up was just an act of courage. I wrote it primarily for my boys so that they would have a better understanding of what their dad went through. Because it's a really hard thing for them to understand, and they still don't get it all the way through. I still got some work to do there. But having said that, that first book is the crucible of the collapse of me. Really after the quintessential, almost comical, stereotypical midlife crisis, I'm the poster boy. And man, there's some people can learn some lessons about what I went through. Because in that crucible, I really was going through just an awesome experience. It's a spiritual awakening, and I just didn't know it. I just thought I was dying. I wanted to die. The first sentence in this book says, suicide consumed my thoughts. To die would be welcome, is what I told Tom. I mean, I just wanted the pain to go away, right? It was just too much pain. My whole persona had collapsed in on me, and that's a harsh thing to experience. I needed it. I'm thankful for it now. But back in the day, I was just thrashing about, didn't know what the heck was happening. And then later I go, we should know about this stuff. We hear in some forums and spectrums, but here in the West, it's just not something that people talk about. You got religion, and we practice religion, and then you got spirituality where people pursue other avenues towards their spirituality. In religion, we tend to practice not only the Bible, but the doctrines that the church, man, has put in place to provide guidance on how to practice. And it's really about behavioral modification at that point, and in hopes that there's this transformation that comes later or at some point. The pursuit of spirituality, is more of an inside game. And that's how Eastern religion practices, is through meditation and going in. And Western religion tends to put a big stiff arm and go, that's a lot of New Age stuff. It doesn't apply. And so there's this conflict. And that would be the primary impetus for this book, is to find the intersect where they both take you. They take you to the same door, but what is that door? And I think I've done a pretty good job of nailing what that door is. But it's up to you guys to figure that out, if it is or if it isn't. But, I'm an entrepreneur and started my career, public accounting, CPA, got into banking, lending really, not really banking, but lending, and worked for 2 global financial institutions, Barclays and GE Capital, and business development, senior VP, and did deals. Did leverage buyout stuff back in the late 80s into the middle 90s. Then I formed my own boutique merchant banking firm, 2 other guys, where we would co-invest and put deals together and become part of the management team. And I participated in 4 buy and builds, CEO of 5 different companies, CFO of a couple others, and got involved in a couple of software deals. And that's going to be relevant here in a minute. I mean, I'm currently working on a software startup right now, and it's in the law enforcement space for first responders, and we're going live with our first customer now. But the interesting thing about software is, and I have a story written in this book, is I found that it's a whole lot like your persona and the way we get conditioned and we get programmed in our early years. And so I kind of correlate the two. And in it I say, hey, you're building a software platform. If you don't get a good foundation, and then you want to add features and enhance it, perhaps integrate it with something else, then you have to deal with the reality. Did you build the foundation suitable for that type of growth and progress? In most cases, the answer is no. Because you got to have a lot of foresight to know what it is you're trying to do at the end of the game in order to build it right on the front end. In my first software program initiative, that's what happened. We had kind of a rogue developer, and he was coding like so fast, and we were thinking, this guy's a semi-god, he's so good at what he does. And we're going to market, and we ended up getting a financial partner, an industry player that was going to plug us in, and we'd immediately have access to most of the market share that we were looking for. And then we learned that the software, all these new features we were adding, we suddenly started seeing bugs pop up. And so we really had a hard time getting even through a demo. And we hired somebody to come in from the outside, a senior developer, to take a look at it and say, hey, help us get this thing fixed. And he got in and said, man, this is rogue developing, it's not documented, we can't fix it. We got to go offline and rebuild it, and hopefully we can keep it together until we can get this new platform back online. And well, we couldn't, so it ended up failing, and for a number of other reasons. But that was the central theme was we were writing code on top of code that wasn't compatible. It wasn't properly integrated. And our psyche's a lot like that. We're coming to the world as babies, and we're pristine. And that's why Jesus says, those nursing babies over there, you got to become like them to get into the kingdom of heaven. And that's a really interesting thing to hear Jesus say. And now I understand what that means. And eventually we'll get into that. But when us as humans, get involved in our lives, and we're moving through life with this early conditioning and programming, most of us aren't even aware of what happened. We're just too young. We didn't have that cognition. And so you have traumas, and traumas can appear to be slight at that age, but they can manifest to be fierce demons later on in your life. But to fix yourself, I mean, you can't hardly talk it through because you got to fix the wiring. You got to go in and fix something. And we're not really very good at that. We're not taught these things. And so that process of unwinding that programming is like taking a software program that's collapsed. Like I collapsed. My program crashed and I couldn't reboot it. I really didn't want to. So I had to go offline, peel all that back, and then you start to reorientate, rewrite your program. And that period of your life, I'll call it the dark night of the soul. It's that period you're having to figure out, okay, what happened? What's going to happen next? And so this book really chronicles that 6-month period where I documented everything that happened to me. And it's harsh, it's brutal, it's unforgiving. I've taken it offline. It's too vulnerable. And I'm just going to wait to see if the second book gets traction, and if there's any interest in putting this book back up, I might do it. I do have a sequel plan, a part 2 and a part 3 for this. And the part 2 is going to be talking about the midlife crisis, the patterns, the events leading up to this collapse, this crash. And then the third part's going to be what happened after. And that's going to really focus on my wife, Ida, and what we went through, because we found each other almost in the exact same condition, psychic-wise, coming off some really unique relationships. And I guess I'll say, get out of the way, I found that I'm extremely codependent, and it's toxic. And the patterns in my life were the result of that toxicity of being a codependent. I came out of a house that all my siblings are afflicted at some level. And my dad, I believe him to be, 11. He's dead now, but best friend. I definitely had sort of a trauma bond with him, but he was a narcissist. He had a rage in him and lacked a lot of control. But my mom was an alcoholic, and it just hurts my heart to even categorize my mom like that, because she was a loving person, but she got beat to hell too. And we lived in this environment that was just, we were geared to conditional love. You had to achieve, you had to produce, you had to be something special. Then I can love you. But if you failed, if you didn't do those things, that love was withheld. And that just creates a lot of issues as you start to relate with people in your later years. I wish I'd have seen it sooner. And that's one of the reasons why I have this podcast, is that I want to help people see it sooner before it crashes down around them. I used to describe it, I said, I just felt like I'm a surfer, and I'm in the water, and I'm just staying ahead of the wave, and I catch a wave that's way too big, and I'm just flying, and I'm just flying as fast as I can go to beat the crash. And I didn't. And the thing crashed down on me, you tumble, and there you go, the wave got me. And I don't think it has to be like that. And I think you can get there, you can have a smoother ride. But this whole awakening thing, enlightenment, you got Western religion, Jesus Christ, they hold him up to be God, which is the most fundamental. I mean, there's Trinitarians and non-Trinitarians. I'm a non-Trinitarian. And I just see Jesus and Christ as two different things. And we're going to talk about that. And you get one shot to get it right. One shot, and you're done. And you got to get saved. And it starts with making a profession, a declaratory statement. And then, you see it on TV. You're saved. Join a church. Do these things. And then it's focused on behavior modification. And this whole thing, transformation of the mind and death to the flesh, these kind of things don't really get talked about. It's not something that is an event, or it's something tangible. It's soft. It's part of your behavior modification. If you behave well, then you've manifested that saving grace. If you don't behave well, then you never did. And it always just disconnect to me. And looking at Jesus as God out there, and then there's this Satan nemesis that's out there, the whole concept of reaping and sowing just didn't make sense. I mean, I could do all the things right, but if I got this menace out there that's going to come over here and just bitch slap me, and I do something terrible, and then I'm how is that worthy of reaping and sowing? So it just never reconciled. And then on the other side, pursuing spirituality in the Eastern context, it's you get multiple trips, and it's something that takes time. It's something that you're working on. And going back to Buddha, I talk about Buddha and Jesus in the book, and the one thing he's missing is he didn't believe in a higher power. Christianity certainly does. And so that practice, you're always struggling with whatever was there before. And if you're going to change and become enlightened, you're negotiating with the very thing that you're trying to presumably get rid of or subdue or move to the side. And I don't think that's ever going to really work. At least I don't believe it is. It can trick you to make you think that it's happened. That's happening all the time. Just like in Christianity, you can convince yourself that you're there because you're spiritual. But that guy in you is really good at making you believe that. And I talk about that quite a bit, and why that's so. And I think there's plenty of warnings in the Bible giving you a heads up to not go down that path. But so that's just kind of a introduction. I'm going to do 4 videos as part of the introduction, and I think the second video I'm going to focus on the beginning. My book is from Genesis to Revelation, and because you got to get the beginning right if you're going to get the ending right. And once again, I look at Christianity, the concept that we're here basically serving a penitence for errant behavior by Adam and Eve, it just never resonated with me. I go, how could the prize be to become a son of God? Such a great prize. If we started off in such a bent out condition, I just didn't make sense. I said, there's got to be something else there. And I think I found it. I'm looking at the Bible esoterically, and I found a thread from Genesis that connects to Revelation, and I ended up with a dramatically different interpretation of Revelation than anything else I've seen. Probably the closest to it would be Edgar Casey, and how he describes it. I go a little further, and we part ways on a couple things, but conceptually that's the closest that I've seen. And I think every story, every book of the Bible, every chapter fits within this symbolism, within this imagery that I've presented in the book. Now, obviously, one book can't hold it all. It's just a 30,000-foot flyover. But it's compelling. And it's changed the way I think about spirituality, because I believe religion, Western religion, brings you to the same door that pursuing spirituality does. And it's just getting through that door. What is that door? I mean, Jesus talks about it being a narrow gate. And a lot of people think they're going to make it through that door, and they don't. They think they made it through, and they only to find out in this judgment process, afterlife, that they didn't. And then even worse than that, it's like when you do reach that salvation point, it's not something that is even going to happen in this life. It's going to happen in the afterlife, which almost makes you disregard the beauty that we live in and dismiss this as just something we have to get through, when it shouldn't be that at all. And then we have a relationship with our planet. That's our host creation. Well, this book is written as an allegory, and my characters are the creation. The earth, Mother Gaia. The moon is Dawa. The seven seas is Mira, the spirit of the seven seas. The wind is Kalani. The sun is Zaphron for the water drops that are in Mira, in the ocean, the seas. And then the sun turns into Helia when they take their journey of saffron. And the journey of saffron is basically the water cycle. Drops being vaporized, evaporated, sin on land, and cleaning Gaia, nourishing life, what have you. And it's remarkable how similar water in the creation is for us. I mean, roughly 72% of us is water, 72% of the earth is water. And there's a lot of symbolism in the Bible that correlates the creation to our bodies. And that's where we'll walk through it. But in the Bible, the earth is our lower self. The heavens is our higher self, symbolically. Jerusalem is the heart center. The sea is our subconscious. And it all fits. It's amazing how it all fits. And we're part of a really remarkable, extraordinary experience. And it's designed this way. And I believe we chose to do this. And there is an end game. And it's waking up, coming to consciousness. There's just a whole lot of connection to Jungian, Carl Jung. His philosophy of his psychology. I mean, it just, the animus and the anima, and there's just a whole lot of similarities. And I think our whole body is the mind. That thoughts get generated in various parts of our body. And I think the Bible shows that. So for now, I will let you go and start working on the second one. See you later.